All right, so shall I begin? Yes, all right. So we now have, in terms of the folks that are not in the room in terms of board members, we do have Miguel Luna, who is attending via Zoom, and Tony Estramera, who is also attending via Zoom. So we've done a roll call before, so we're coming out of closed session. So I'd like to go over some things because we're going to do things a little bit differently today. So I want to explain how we're going to do them and in what order we're going to do them, just so everybody knows what to expect. So we've just come out of closed session, so I'd like to say that we have no reportable actions coming out of closed session. And then we also have a concurrent meeting, a special meeting this afternoon. And so what we're going to do is we're going to finish the rest of our regular meeting agenda. And then what we'll do is we will stop that agenda and we will go into the agenda for the special meeting. So that's the one I know that most everybody is here to listen to. So you're going to have to listen to us go through our regular meeting first, which is really fascinating anyway. So you'll enjoy it. Okay, so for the special meeting, we have one item. It's a presentation on the cost estimate and cost benefit analysis, and that will be a single agenda item. So we will take both presentations at the same time and then move into board questions and public comment. Okay, so let's get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so let's get into this.
President Palmer, I do just want to take a moment and acknowledge that we do have alternate directors also in attendance.
Oh, great. Would you announce that, please?
So online, we do have alternate director Weed, alternate director Fast, alternate director Fleury, and alternate director Lamoureux. And in the room, we have alternate director Tincher.
Great, welcome. Glad you're here. All right, then let us now get into the regular agenda. We're starting out with the approval of the minutes for April 18th, 2024. Do I have move to approve? Okay, do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, Tony is seconding. Then we will go ahead and basically go ahead and get that roll call.
Roll call, gladly. President Palmer?
Aye.
Director Millibar?
Aye.
Director Martin?
Aye.
Director Luna?
Aye.
Thank you. Director Samara?
Aye.
Thank you. Director Chang?
Aye.
And Director Anaptawi? All right, thank you. Meeting minutes approved.
Great. Okay, so let's get into our discussion items. We have 5 discussion items. So let's begin with the May monthly board report.
Thank you, President Palmer. I'll let Claudia get things set up here. So we're going to first start with the summary of work. If you could go to section 1. So a lot of what you're going to hear about today is work that's been a real priority for the DCA. But I'll get to that in just a second. Looking more at our program management, administrative tasks. There has been a lot of work in not only processing our current fiscal year financials, invoices, amendments, task orders, also preparing the budget information for next fiscal year. So we will be previewing that as part of the next agenda item. On the administrative side, we've got several activities underway. We've started with the tours, the alignment tours. Those have started to ramp up again. So the planning activities for those tours. We've also got some additional information system software rollout, a learning management system for within the DCA that we're starting to stand up and incorporate into our learning and information and knowledge maintenance. So that's a really good system that I'm happy we're getting off the ground. We also have in this room planned a couple of upgrades to improve the audio. So that's just a small thing that I am looking forward to doing in here. Hopefully everyone will appreciate. On the engineering front, this is back to, as I mentioned, the cost estimate as you described in your introductory statements. A lot of work has been done to evaluate costs and also look at potential innovations that could be considered, but would require, of course, further consideration by DWR. In addition to that, we are starting to work on a project engineering report. So there's a lot of engineering documentation available that was provided as reference to the EIR. Now that there is a selected project for further study by the department, we're taking this time to revise and strip out the extra information for other alternatives, other flow rates, other alignments, so that we have a concise package of kind of high level engineering documentation. And then that will be a foundational backbone document going forward as we further refine and develop next steps in terms of the documentation. So that is starting to happen now. We're working on the outlines and starting to work our way through that preferred project engineers report. The fieldwork program has resumed for the spring. We do have investigative teams out in the field. Currently, they're working on our spring program, and so that work is underway. So I think we can skip over the next month's work. It's going to look very much the same as this month. So let's go ahead and go to the budget, and you'll hear more from Valerie Martinez and staff reports on community engagement and outreach. So I'm going to jump right to the budget topics. So we have our approved budget for this fiscal year of 40.4 million. We have actually committed through task orders and contracts about 36.8 million. However, you can see incurred to date, we're at 23.5. We're really starting to tighten up our estimates for the fiscal year. We've now downgraded our estimate at completion. I think the last time we talked, it was at 36 million. We're now showing an EAC of 34.8. So our underrun is growing. We're now at 5.6 million. I would expect that to continue to grow as we work our way towards the end of the fiscal year. This is pretty natural. You've probably gotten used to this pattern, as have I. Each fiscal year, we set it up, we include the appropriate contingency to ensure that the board's approved budget doesn't get exceeded unless authorized by the board. And then as we work our way through the year and the realities of the year play out, we then start to manage and work our way through those funding situations and opportunities to maybe shift our scope and reassess. We did that mid-year. So even with that exercise of reassessment and reevaluation, we've still got a pretty healthy underrun. This is, from my perspective, certainly not a bad thing. This really helps us as we sort of gradually and steadily increase our workload, onboard new staff from the various consulting teams, and just continue to steadily and gradually increase the size of the force. So Claudia, if we could go now to the cash flow curve, please. So the cash flow curve just hits, I think, directly on that same topic. We've got the planned monthly expenditure shown with the blue bars, the cumulative line cutting across diagonally in blue, the actual monthly expenditures in gold. So we were working pretty steadily and as planned through the fall. Since the fall, January, February, March, we've just been not quite to the same level. This is a reflection, I think, on you do your best planning, but you get 6 months or more away, things change. And then there's sort of the natural inertia of our fiscal year, whereas we start to think about new scope items, we have to make the decision, do we stand those up now, kind of at the last minute, knowing that we're going to have to descope them and roll them into new task orders for the next fiscal year, or do we just shift them and sort of defer them to the next fiscal year? So once we hit this part of the year, it seems to be pretty natural that things start to kind of fade off a little bit, and we've really got our sights set on the work, the scope and budget for next fiscal year, where things sort of reset and kick off again. Claudia, let's go now to the last, to the schedule slide, please. So this is just our program schedule for the fiscal year. These are the main items that we've had active this year. A lot of the underrun that we're talking about originates within the project definition reports. So you see that item under engineering, it's flagged at about 14% complete right now. Those project definition reports are envisioned to really spill off of the project engineering report that we're going to be preparing, and they would provide that next level of detail. We're still working on several kind of relevant topics that would need to be done prior to launching into these project definition reports. We really need to think through and work through a bit more how various aspects of the project would be packaged together. What components of the project do we actually want to include in an individual project definition report? So we're working through more of that strategy side. We're also now more informed from a master schedule perspective. We don't want to start these things any earlier than we have to, and we've now got the benefit of that schedule to inform kind of when we need to be launching into these project definition reports to better define these elements. And having that information now, we benefit from that now. We didn't have it this time last year. So it's informing our schedule on these project definition reports, and that's allowed us to just kind of shift them. And the costs, a lot of the underrun that you're seeing comes out of us not launching into those project definition reports yet in earnest. Okay, so President Palmer, I think I'll stop there with the monthly report, but would welcome any questions.
Okay, any questions from the board? No? Do we want to hold public questions till after everything here, or do them in between?
I'd recommend we check to see if we have public comment on each agenda item as we move forward, if that's okay.
Okay, sure. Do we have any public comment on this agenda item?
President Palmer, we have not received any requests for this item, but I do want to remind folks in the room, if they do want to provide public comment, that we do have comment cards sitting there at the entryway with the other materials.
Okay, so we have no public comment from folks who are in the room, and we have no public comment from folks who are on Zoom. Okay, great. Thank you. Then let's move on to the next, which is the draft budget review.
Great. Thank you, President Palmer. So we have to share today an initial draft of our fiscal year budget for our next fiscal year, 24-25. It's coming in. Sorry, could you go back? I want to just hold for a second on the board report. Thank you. We do have for you a preliminary budget. This is 43 million, so a marginal increase from the approved 40.4 for the current fiscal year. The planned work for the upcoming year will largely focus on continuing to support the Department of Water Resources and all of their permit documentation application efforts, responding to any requests for clarification or additional information or analysis. We will continue to execute our geotechnical program to better understand conditions associated with the preferred project, the Bethany Reservoir Alignment. This is to help better define and support current assumptions on underground conditions. This data is really critical to validating assumptions on those conditions applied to the conceptual design, especially the tunnel stretches, but many of the components as we seek to further understand the preferred project. We do want to continue our development of our project delivery plan, which includes analysis of the overall program sequence, design and construction innovations, potential contracting strategy innovations, with a real focus on looking for ways to reduce impacts, manage costs, reduce schedule, improve constructability. And then lastly, we want to continue all of the developmental work that we've been working on within the organization to prepare the DCA, prepare ourselves in terms of policies, procedures, the structural aspects of the DCA, so that we can further transition as this program continues to evolve. We're looking to really maintain our efficiency through this process. We have really a singular purpose, and I just want to make sure that everything we do has that in mind, and everything we're doing is done in the most efficient way possible. So that's another real focus in terms of our efforts over the next fiscal year. So with that, would go now to the summary slide that you pulled up. So this is a comparison, a high-level comparison, and we will go into much greater detail this afternoon in our finance committee. So I've got for the board this draft, this sheet only to share the draft budget. I will acknowledge, although it's not on here, our contingency is 1.6 million. That compares to last year, 2 million. We went into the budget with a $2 million contingency. That was really reflective of a lot of the uncertainties we had around the second half of the year. I think going into the next year, 1.6 seems like a pretty reasonable contingency, especially given our past performance on tapping that unallocated reserve. So looking at these numbers across the board, you don't see a whole lot of changes. There's a few notable spots. You'll recall that our work is done in phases, the main active phases being the program management office, the blue bar running across the top, program initiation, which is where all of our permit support, engineering, and field work has been provided to date, and then program delivery, which is where we are transitioning the geotechnical investigations along a preferred project alignment over into that phase. But as you look at the sort of the side-by-side comparisons, you can see in those numbers an uptick in property and real estate considerations, permit management. We've also got quality management, sustainability, and then a new task, geotechnical management, which is for managing the geotechnical work performed under program delivery. But otherwise, I think it's kind of pretty standard compared to this current fiscal year. And as I mentioned, we'll get into much greater detail this afternoon in the Finance Committee.
Any questions from the board? Yes, go ahead.
Thanks, President Spongler. And Graham, thanks for, the high level overview, and I'm looking forward to the discussion later this afternoon on the details. But I guess one of the things I will kind of highlight is that it looks like, your project geotechnical is like $9.3 million for next year, which is, a little less than 25% of the total budget, which, I mean, to me, it's a good sign. It's, we do need to, conduct this work to give us a little bit more certainty that we're all looking for, right, to kind of advance this project. So anyways, just want to make sure I was reading that correctly.
You are reading that correctly, and I thank you for the comment. Yeah.
Yes. There you go. You're gonna have to repeat because we have to have.
Did you hear that?
Please go ahead and repeat if you don't.
There's no entry under field work under program initiation for the 24-25. Is that because it's down below under geotechnical?
That is correct, Director Millibar. The program initiation phase of field work was very broadly focused. It was supporting DWR's consideration of a broad suite of alternatives, really collecting data delta wide. So we were looking at conditions spread out across the entire delta. At this point, now that there is a project selected for further study by the department, we're shifting over into the program delivery phase. This is sort of an accounting consideration because now that we're starting to collect additional data that will ultimately help inform potential designs down the road, we don't want to bury costs associated with that under what would really be more of a permit, pre-permitting stage. We want to start tracking these investigations as part of a potential project down the road and not have to always be reminding ourselves that there was quite a bit of work done hidden under another phase of the program.
Any other questions from the board? No, and that basically you asked my question. Very good. Okay, do we have any questions from the public on this?
President Palmer, we have not received any requests.
Okay, nobody in the room and nobody on Zoom.
That is correct.
Okay, then let's continue on. And oh, good, because we've got senior leadership spotlight. I love this part. Okay, and so we have Mr. Adrian Brown, who is our Chief Contracting Officer.
Yes, President Palmer, I'll jump in before Adrian figured out how to activate his mic down there. And so I'm happy to introduce Adrian Brown. We're very grateful to have Adrian join us as our Chief Contracting Officer. Adrian is not new to the program, although we haven't seen him for several years. So I'll let Adrian share his experience, but we're certainly grateful to have him on board and do appreciate all of his professionalism and experience that he brings to the program.
Good afternoon, President Palmer and directors of the DCA board. My name is Adrian Brown, and I'm a recent add to the DCA team as your Chief Contracting Officer. I was here briefly in 2018, helping the DCA stand up after it was formed in May of 2018. I have a very basic introduction slideshow to present. So I'm a transplant to California. I was born and raised in Canada. I've lived all over California, Los Angeles area, Bay Area, Sacramento area. Actually, the longest I've spent in one area is the Sacramento area, about 14 years. So I've bounced around at different job locations throughout the state of California. My wife and I are basically empty nesters. We've entered a new stage in our life. Most recently, my grandson just called me very old. I think he used the word dinosaur. We can be found watching our grandson playing in Fresno. He's into flag football. He was also doing baseball recently, but I'm glad he's just moved on to one sport. Makes it a little bit easier for us when we're traveling. I'm a 19-year member and former president of the California Association of Public Procurement Officials. It's roughly a membership of 1,800 folks from different lines of procurement in government, including universities, cities, municipalities, counties, water districts, etc. I'm also a former representative of the UPPCC. I used to write board examination questions for the CPPBO, which is the Certificate of Public Procurement Officials. Essentially, that's the management level of certification. And I also have a CPPB, which is the buyer designation. I most recently was the 2024 conference program chair for the Capital Conference. Next slide. I hold a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and I also hold a Juris Doctorate in law. Two certifications I just previously announced, the CPPBO and CPPB. Normally, most people get rid of the B after they get to the O, but for whatever reason, I decided I'd like to keep both. Just makes me sound more important. I come with roughly 22 years of government experience and 14 years in private sector, although now I'm recently returned to private sector. I've worked for both counties, cities, water district, water authority. Just recently, I came from San Joaquin County as their Director of Procurement and Support Services with a team of 25, of which we had 14 buyers. Yes, please. So what I'll be bringing to the DCA is project proposal and bid development and management, assisting you with your procurements. I will also be assisting with proposal and bid analysis, contract negotiation and administration. Despite what people think, we don't go into a room with a rubber hose and beat up contractors. We do have active negotiations with them. I will be assisting with staff leadership and professional development, process and policy development and enforcement. Essentially, I will be enforcing DCA's purchasing policy. And then I will be assisting the DCA with compliance with laws and regulations as they refer to procurement, et cetera. And then also, I don't really like to use the word change management, but we also do assist with that as well. Next slide, please. If you have any questions, I'm more than welcome to answer them.
Yeah, what was that cool building in the middle, in the first slide? It had a clock on it.
Oh, that's Disneyland.
It's Disneyland? Okay.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I was there.
When I worked for Metropolitan, the first place we landed was in Anaheim. We were less than half a mile from Disneyland, and we purchased one of those year round, and Disneyland lost money, essentially.
It was good that we dumped our stock. Okay. Okay, great. And what do you do now that you're an empty nester?
We do a lot of traveling, visiting family. Currently, we live in the Bay Area in Pleasant Hill. So we just pop into San Francisco occasionally, or again, we do travel to Fresno quite a bit.
Okay, any questions, folks? Go.
I'll just make a comment. So Adrian, thank you for joining the team. Looking forward to your expertise, but I think more closely to home, I noticed your Capo conference was down Palm Springs just recently, right? Hopefully, that was well attended, and you found the area to be acceptable.
Oh, yes. Actually, that's our third time conference in Palm Springs, and we actually, Capo does have a contract for 2 more events there in the next 4 years. We actually broke records. We had over 300 new attendees. And I want to say we had almost 800 attendees. For that association, that's huge. I should also note that it is the oldest public procurement association in the United States. NIGP trails us by about 20 years, as we like to rub that out there.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Chair Palmer, just a brief welcome, Adrian, to the team. Looks like you're very well qualified. I'm not sure that the work you had ahead of you is going to be probably will be less demanding than going to Disneyland on a regular basis. So I think you're well trained. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, thank you.
Either of our board members online have any questions? No? Okay, any public comment?
No public comment requests, President
Not
Palmer.
in the room, not on Zoom, and well, welcome. So nice to have you with us. Okay, great. Thank you. That was good. Glad to see you're well qualified. Okay, good. All right, let's move on. Now we're on items D, which is the resolution approving the third amendment to the VMA Communications Agreement for support services.
President Palmer and members of the board. At this time, staff would like to recommend the extension of the contract with VMA Communications. Currently, their contract is due to expire in a short period of time. We would also like to add additional money to the contract. Roughly bringing the contract maximum to 2.75 million.
All right. Do we have any comments from the board? Comments or questions? Yes.
Just a question, then, Adrian. So this is third amendment. Are there any limits to the number of amendments that we can make or?
The way we're set up, we can do as many extensions as we need to do. It is, however, the intent of the DCA to bring this out to competitive solicitation, perhaps in the later stage of 2024 to early 2025.
Thanks for that. I wasn't suggesting that VMA is not providing good service. So thank you for that clarification.
Okay. Any other comments? Do we have any public comment
President Palmer, we do not have any public comment requests.
from any of our three? Okay, great.
Motion for approval, Madam Chair?
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, let's do a roll call.
All right, President Palmer,
Aye.
Director Millibar,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Aye.
Director Luna,
Aye.
Director Sturmera,
Aye.
Director Chang,
Aye.
and Director Anaptawi.
Yeah.
Excellent. Resolution approved.
Great. Okay, then let's go ahead and move on to item number E, which is the resolution approving a surplus property policy.
So the attached policy is a recommendation by the DCA staff. Both myself and general counsel worked on reviewing a policy for your presentation. Essentially, what this policy does is as the DCA grows in size and activity, we will be purchasing equipment and systems. But as we wind through, some of those systems will become aged and will need to go out or for refreshing. A great example is your laptops, et cetera. So about every 5 years, IT usually will refresh your laptops. And so a good example is those laptops would then be surplused out to the public as an opportunity for them to bid on it. There are other sections where we could perhaps donate them to a charitable organization. Sometimes agencies will donate to a school. This just sets out the guidelines by which we would go ahead and do the surplus of those pieces of equipment and systems.
Yes. Okay. We're making, okay, let's just see, before we continue, on our resolution, if we could have a spell check instead of disposal, it might be disposal. That's right at the very top.
Thank you, President Palmer.
Okay. Okay, so do we have any questions or questions from the board? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you,
um,
President Palmer.
Director Haddad.
Yeah, could you just explain to me when you determine that, is it because it's becoming too costly to maintain versus just procuring or buying new equipment, or sort of when does it make sense to sort of replace or go through equipment like that? Just curious.
So my most recent agency at San Joaquin County, they would replace on a 5-year schedule for laptops, using that as another example. And at that agency, what they do is they would lease the equipment because they found it was much more advantageous. The support came directly from the manufacturer if they had to go back and receive updates to the equipment. It also made it easier where they would just return the equipment back. However, certain pieces of equipment, you can't do that. You have to outright purchase it, usually like in fleet, for example. Some agencies would buy like a 100-ton crane or bring it into their fleet. But after so many years, if, say, the diesel engine isn't operating to efficiency, they also carry money that they build up over time to be able to be prepped to be able to replace that piece of equipment. So again, with like computers, most likely would be 5 years would be the time to refresh. You could probably go another 2 years if you own the equipment. But at a certain point in time, the computers just can't keep up anymore. And it would be best to just surplus it. It's actually less costly to get yourself new equipment at that time.
I just have a quick question on surplusing of computers and that. You have the proper thing of basically erasing everything completely so that because if people are doing things here with the DCA or there could be things that we really don't want to just become.
Yes, part of that process does require, usually for computers, we call it, there's a level at which you do it. Some people use the term DOD, that's the level that the Department of Defense uses. We would do something very similar in either staff at DCA would do the wipe, or we would ask a vendor to do the wiping for us and then provide a certification with that, showing that that item has either been wiped or destroyed.
Yeah, because some of the levels of wiping don't work as well as one would hope.
And,
So I would trust, yes.
I was just gonna say, language to that effect is on the bottom of page 1 of the policy, just clarifying that IT equipment would be securely wiped.
Okay, but as long as it's securely wiped, truly securely wiped, because I am aware of various levels of securely wiping. Okay, great. Okay, anybody else, Tony or Miguel, do you have any comments? Nope. Okay, then do we have any public comment?
President Palmer, we do not have any for this item.
Okay, then do we have a motion? Yes.
Thank you. Just had a quick question. I don't see, maybe I'm missing. Is there any prohibition about selling any of this to employees of Delta Conveyance or this group or DWR or anybody else associated with the project?
Yes, there is language within the policy that we cannot sell it to DCA folks.
Gary, it's in the last paragraph of section 2 on page 1 of the policy.
There it is. Members of the Board of Directors and DCA staff are ineligible to purchase. It's right there. Gary? It's on the disposal.
Oh, the first page.
Okay. Okay, so,
Okay, very
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
so let's, do we have a motion to carry this forward? So moved. And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. And let's bring it to a vote.
President Palmer,
Aye.
Director Millibar, Director Martin,
Aye.
Director Luna,
Aye.
Director Stamera,
Aye.
Director Chang,
Aye.
and Director Anaptawi.
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent.
And then.
Policy approved.
Great, there we go. Okay, so we have gone through our discussion items. So now we are on to number 7, which is reports and announcements. And we have 4 sections on that, starting with General Counsel's report.
Thanks, President Palmer. No report this afternoon. Thank you.
Okay. Now we get to the DCP Communications Report.
Great timing. It's like a pit crew here.
Great. Love it.
I'm going to keep it pretty high and tight. There's a lot going on during our meeting today. We're continuing to work on our explainer videos and fact sheets. We had a very active Aqua conference. We had our booth, a lot of people coming through our booth and asking a lot of really great questions. The booth was, I think, really wonderfully positioned near spaces where people tend to gather. So I think the team did a great job of identifying that, making sure that we were in that good spot. And we had our team there just answering, and Graham would staff the booth on occasion and Carrie would come by. So people felt that they had direct access to the folks who actually are in the weeds, doing the work. So, and obviously the governor came out and made a presentation that spoke to the project, which was absolutely incredible. So it was a very active, I'll just say active and successful Aqua event for the DCP. We are continuing to coordinate very closely with the DWR on any variety of issues, including, of course, as you can imagine, the mounds of materials and information that has gone out today and will continue to go out with regard to the cost estimate and the benefit cost analysis. So that whole process has been very involved. And very thorough. And then our tours continue. We've done a legislative tour, which went really, really well with some key staff. As a former legislative staffer, I love seeing the fact that many of our younger ledge staffers now are actual scientists. They went to school to be scientists. So it's not, it's a different dynamic these days. And the questions were wonderful. They're truly there to find out not just about the policy, but about the science of it. So it was a very successful discussion. And the team, Miss Claudia Rodriguez, actually assisted with another tour put on by Metropolitan Water District that was completely in Spanish. And it was a Delta tour that included discussion about the Delta conveyance. And she did an exceptional job of explaining the project and coordinating. I believe Director Luna was there, ensuring that not only were we providing information, but we were getting information back on how to talk about the project in a way that's accessible to everyone. So all of that's going great. The legislative outreach program continues. We're working directly with DWR and their government affairs person. So that's been very involved. And so people are getting information and they're understanding what the project is. And that's what we aim to do here.
Good, thank you. Okay, any questions from the board? No, okay. Then let's move into the environmental managers report.
Thank you, Chair Palmer and members of the board. So I think in my past updates, I explained that we submitted our change in point of diversion petition to the State Water Resources Control Board in February. They noticed it for public review, and that protest period closed this past Monday. We were able to address some concerns before that. So we did reach some settlement agreements with parties, but we did still have 45 protests, around 45. Some of those protests were from multiple parties, so there are more parties than that engaged in the protest. We're still working on processing those, understanding more about the issues that are reflected, and we will engage with those parties to see if there are additional concerns that we can address before the hearing begins. That is it.
Great, okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for public comment on any of these things after we do them. Okay, do we have any verbal reports? Go ahead.
Just a brief one, President Palmer. I did attend Aqua. I must say that I really enjoyed the panel on the Delta conveyance. Carrie Buckman, you were there as a panelist. Bob Tincher, I see you back there too. And then we had Thad Bettner with the Sacramento River settlement contractors. This is a very emotional, Delta is a very emotional place, and projects around the Delta are important, but it was very clear the spirit of collaboration and the amount of time spent having conversations, having those discussions, educating, understanding, listening. was very clear. So I really appreciated those perspectives. And yeah, I just want to say thank you for that.
Yes. Well, I will just mention, as long as we're talking about Aqua, it was quite exciting. It was exciting to hear the, excuse me, have Governor Newsom come out and basically say that the Delta conveyance is a climate adaptation project, which was, he very emphatically stated that, and also stated that he was going to hopefully help us to get permitted before he leaves office. So if you heard anybody go woo-hoo in that thing, that was me. Yeah. So so that was really quite exciting. And the folks, the Delta conveyance folks did some very good presentations, both here in this room and then also in at the Aqua itself. So it was very well received. And anything else? Anything else? No, for verbal report. We're doing verbal report. Anything from our directors, Tony or Miguel? Nope. Okay. Then do we have any public comment on any of this?
President Palmer, we do not.
Okay, then let us move on to.
Question. For Adrian, back on item 6D, where we approved extending the contract and raising the maximum payable amount. It's over double the increase. And can you explain that? Is it because the term's longer or both that and more activity? Went from.
Yes, so there will be an additional amount of activity, and I want to say their current maximum is roughly 2.3. So we're adding an additional amount to be able to get them through to the next close of fiscal.
Director Millibar, I could just add a little bit more thinking into this. It was our preference, my preference really, that we align the contracts with the fiscal year. A lot of the work we do tends to have sort of that cycle to it. And the fact that we had a contract expiration currently set for October, just to me really felt like something with board's approval and consideration that we could align with our typical fiscal year. But in order to do that, there also needed to be, a marginal increase in the contract capacity. But you're right, as it's described in the board report, it's not accounting for the changes in the contract capacity that occurred with the first or second amendments.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Okay, any other comments or verbal reports? No? All right, then let us move on. Future agenda items. Do we have any future agenda items from anyone? No? Okay, then let's move on. This is a time for public comment, and members of the public may address the authority on matters that are within the authority's jurisdiction, but not on the agenda, because we've already asked you about that one. So not on the agenda at this time. Speakers are generally limited to 3 minutes each. However, the chair, that's me, may further limit this time when reasonable based on the circumstances. Persons wishing to speak may do so remotely through the electronic meeting link by scanning the QR code or teleconference number when recognized by the chair. The DCA encourages public comments and requests that speakers present their remarks in a respectful manner when within the established time limits and focus on issues which directly affect the DCA or are within its jurisdiction. And again, these are for items that are not on the agenda. Okay, any public comment?
So President Palmer, we did get one request from Tasia, and forgive me if I mispronounce your last name, but Kiefer or Kafer?
Hi, my name is Tasia Kiefer, and I'm actually scheduled to speak on another item.
Okay, I do have you for agenda 9, or agenda item 9, but what was the item that you wanted to speak to?
2A.
Okay.
Okay, so that's going to be during the special meeting. Okay, so any other public comment for this particular meeting, because then we will adjourn and go into our special meeting. Okay, so everybody all right? Okay, then let us adjourn this meeting and then we will go into our special meeting. Do we need to take a little break and get water and stuff? Anybody? How do you feel about that? 5 minutes. Okay, we'll have a 5-minute break and then we'll come back into the special meeting. Thank you, everyone.